So 1 Million Cups is an initiative by the Kauffman Foundation, and it's across the country. There are many chapters. I don't know how many right now, but the purpose of it originally was laid out so that entrepreneurs, startups, business people have a place to hone their presentation skills, so they can learn to make a good presentation and get that practice. So when they utilize that, whether it's looking for investors or any other thing in front of the press, they've already had a place to get good at it. And also, it's a tremendous networking time so that we can connect the dots and help connect people with resources in the community to help build their business, to enhance their startup. So the underlying purpose is to lift up the entrepreneurial ecosystem in the community, so in Missoula. So that's what we're doing. We're building up the entrepreneurial ecosystem right here in Missoula. So I'm really glad you're here. So I want to introduce our first presenter this morning, and that is Mr. Ryan Duarte. Did I get it right? Duarte from Montana Root Applications. So Ryan, good morning.
Good morning.
And Ryan, among other things, is on a mission to eliminate skin cancer. So you know the rules. Look for me over here with a timer, with 6 minutes. I'll give you a 1 minute heads up and just hold my hand when time's up.
Sure.
We'll go into Q&A.
Sure.
Okay?
Sounds great.
Thank
Yep.
you, Ryan.
All right. So I remember floating down the river many times with my family. That's what people here in the United States, and especially in Montana, just absolutely look forward to all day. And I would go work with my dad. We'd be building some type of block walls or maybe laying out fencing for a couple acres. And then sometimes I would look around and notice all I want to do is lay in the sun. You know, all I want to do is get out of this sun experience. I'm working out in the sun and go lay in the sun somewhere else floating down the river. But what I also noticed is sometimes I would be floating or working, doing what I needed to do in the sun, and all of a sudden I would get a horrible sunburn, like quick. Like I'd be like, wow, I was only out in the sun for an hour, or maybe a half an hour even, and I have this sunburn. And other times I would be out working all day, day after day, and no sunburn. I thought, this is so strange. And then I realized that part of the equation to solving skin cancer is finding out how intense the sun is and keeping that on the forefront of our mind. So part of our solution to skin cancer is an app. We created it for Android and for iOS. It's called Solar Screen. And the concept is people only have 3 to 10 seconds extra nowadays. People want to avoid skin cancer, and they want to help build a data set where they can research skin cancer, but they just don't have the time. And the people who are experts at it, they just don't think that they're qualified to take on beating skin cancer. It's just a job that's just too big. And then how do you want to beat it, Ryan? Well, there's 6 different attacks, 6 different angles I want to take, and all of them are really hard problems. One is object recognition, which happens to be the hardest problem in computer science. There's not a whole lot of mentors that want to just step on board and say, I'll help with that. But that's what I'm here looking for is mentors like that and people with an extra 5 to 10 seconds. So what we did, myself and several other genius computer programmers here from Montana, from Missoula, what we did is we took the whole problem of skin cancer and we started chopping it up, figuring out how can we make this into a problem that only takes 6 to 10 seconds, because that's all people have. What we found out is that we could make a major impact on cancer if we had 100,000 or 500,000 people putting 6 to 10 seconds at this. But how am I going to get there 6 to 10 seconds? Well, I found out that people are currently just wasting their 6 to 10 seconds on CAPTCHA time. A CAPTCHA is where you have to prove that you're a human being. And so what we did is we used that vessel, CAPTCHA, and we put in the problem, skin cancer, and we asked that everybody who just has an extra 6 to 10 seconds and needs to prove that they're a human uses our CAPTCHA. In doing this, they'll build this huge set of data. This data will be cancer research, and it'll be viewable by everybody. Everybody who wants to pay a small fee can go in and check out all this geo-referenced data on cancer research. And what it does is it makes it so that anybody who beta tests the CAPTCHA, they will be helping to beat skin cancer. Anybody who uses the CAPTCHA in their company and says, hey, we want to help with skin cancer, they're going to be dramatically helping skin cancer. And then there's going to be this group of really smart people, and they're going to want to hack the CAPTCHA because it's a piece of security. And what happens to all security? It gets hacked. Well, we thought that through, and what we decided is we want it to be hacked. We want the best and brightest hackers in Montana and all over the world to come and attack the problem of skin cancer, right? They're going to be attacking our security, but in doing so, they're going to be beating a problem which is going to help to end skin cancer. And when I say that, they're going to be making our current way of doing things obsolete. They're going to be reinventing the whole system over and over and over. We've lined up a system to where each time the hacker succeeds, he gets credit for it. He gets a little trophy by his name. Everybody in the world gets to see he beat this CAPTCHA, right? But in doing that, he's making a major impact in skin cancer. So another portion Another portion of the vision to beating skin cancer entirely revolves around this app that I want to go back to. It's called Solar Screen, and the concept is that you can quickly, just by looking at your phone, within 2 to 6 seconds, see how intense the sun is. So while I'm floating down the river and the sun is at a 2 or 4 on a scale from 1 to 11 in intensity, I just float happy all day. I don't even have to worry about a thing. But other times, my phone might beep, might send me a little alert and say, hey, it's gone over 9. It's on its way to 11, you know? And maybe I take the time at that point to put the sunscreen on my kids. And this is the important part, because the adults, they've already taken all this solar radiation. They've already taken on all this damage, and they already have all these skin markings representing all this skin damage. But the kids, they don't have this. And what they need is someone to protect them from this. My wife, she was floating down the river one year, and there was one of these intense solar furies where the sun was just, maybe at a 9 or a 10 or an 11. What I noticed happen was, she and her family noticed happen, because she was a young girl, is that her skin markings increased vastly. She went from having maybe 100 freckles to having hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of freckles. And I thought to myself, does her doctor know this? Does she know this? Does she know how many skin markings she has? Does the freckliest person you know how many skin markings they have? Do they realize that this number is in direct correlation to their chance of having skin cancer? Well, so what we did is we made up the Freckle Counter app. What it does is it counts how many freckles you have. Yep. If you got freckles, you want to know how many you got. And so the idea is you would go to this site and just take a quick selfie, and it'll tell you how many freckles you have. Deal is, it's a super hard problem. I mean, ultra hard. And so we couldn't build out a very accurate freckle counter. What we found out is that some hacker out there can, and we need to present this as a problem to him, right? When I present this as a problem to him, he solves it, but he doesn't just solve that problem, then he solves the next problem and the next problem. It's just a fire. So I need to go ahead and wrap it up right now, but I'm sure you guys will have some questions for me.
Okay, do we have questions right off the bat?
So do you have to have the phone with you?
Oh,
Here.
Can you ask your question again? Sorry, the dummy mic.
Do you have to have the phone with you all the
Okay.
time to have the app work?
So right now, we're working on the apps, which you do have to have the phone with you, but we also have solutions, including UV reactive synthetic polymer, and it works physically, so you would put it on your body, and it would work without your phone. Because I'm not coming to market with that right now, I'm just focusing on the CAPTCHA and the app, which does require you to have your phone. But what you could do is take a look at what the intensity of the sun is going to be for the next couple hours. Maybe leave your phone in the car. Grab your phone back when you get out, and make sure that when you applied your sunscreen, you hit the little button on the app to say, I applied my sunscreen. And then it says, would you like me to remind you to reapply your sunscreen in 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, 120 minutes? And it flips up a suggestion. Maybe I'll remind you in 60 minutes, which you can change based on the UV index at the time.
So how does that exactly work? Does it work based on calculating where you are geographically, with the GPS coordinates and what the angle of the sun is and all that, or is it somehow reading the radiation of the sun?
That's a great question. What it does is it reads the UV index in the zip code you're in. So let's say you're driving across the country. What it's doing is it's regularly updating your geolocation. And then it's checking to see what the UV index is at your exact location. And it's keeping you up to date with an hourly update on that.
Is that based on weather and everything?
Yep, that's based on weather and everything.
So I'm interested in the capture part. As someone who's dealt with blogs and robots putting spammy comments on blogs, I'm always looking for a great way of preventing that. And is there a fee to the owner of the blog, for instance, to put the CAPTCHA on, or is it provided free of charge because of the data that it's collecting?
Perfect. So we're rolling it out completely free of charge. And the reason we're doing that is because we're building a big data set. And the neat thing is we know only a little bit about what to do with that data set. But we're going to make it open to developers to where they pay a license fee, something very reasonable, maybe $99, and then they get access to everyone else's cancer data, right? That way they can do some incredible new things that we haven't even thought of yet with the data. But the idea is the data is going to tell us about people in Australia versus people in Montana and how the sun is affecting them based on the UV index and based on the amount of hours they're spending in the sun. The CAPTCHA is just a cheap way of engaging everyone, cheap meaning not costing a lot of time.
But how is the CAPTCHA showing a picture of something and then you respond to that picture, or you pick the most freckled person in the picture, or how does it work?
Right, so what's happening is you have a box, and normally you see like some letters or numbers, some squiggle through it. Well, on ours, what you see is a piece of skin, a piece of actual skin. And what you're asked to do is select some freckles. You go ahead and you select the freckles that maybe you think, there's different sets of instructions for different problems, but maybe the instructions might say something like, pick 4 freckles that look the most unusual in this picture. Or count the amount of freckles that are in this slide. It'll be a very small slide and a very easy problem. The deal is that we need to know the location of each of these freckles, and we need to know how many there are, but we can have many, many people look at each tile and double check, triple check each other to get truth.
So people that, when it pops up on their, excuse me, on their website, they're filling out and answering the CAPTCHA to prove they're not a robot. That's how you're gathering data. Is that correct? So how, you said that anybody that hacks your CAPTCHA, that's going to help solve the problem. How does, please explain that. I didn't grasp. How does someone hacking it help solve the skin cancer problem?
Okay, so you guys remember I wanted to create the freckle counter, right? That's what this thing started with, is to find out how many freckles my daughter has at 4 and how many she has at 5, or how many my wife has now at 32. And so we found out is that we can't do this thing because object recognition is one of the most difficult problems. Who can? Hackers. So what happens is we give them the problem, and they have to figure out a way to solve the problem of counting freckles better than we can. So we've written an algorithm, and we try to count how many freckles or find where certain freckles are in the frame, and it's very, very difficult. So people will go ahead and be able to do this immediately and instantly, but somebody will eventually be able to write an algorithm that can, in fact, spot the freckles and can tell one freckle that's on top of another and make sure that it's not just all one piece, that it's 2 separate. Now, humans can do this naturally, computers can't. But there's some hacker out there who's smart enough, he will be able to write an algorithm to count and find out where these freckles are in this frame. Right. Once he does, he effectively beat our CAPTCHA. The neat thing is, we get to put our tentacles out there and see what they're doing. We get to keep an eye on what they're doing, and then we get to pick up that algorithm they wrote to count the freckles, and then we get to apply that and give him a harder problem. For instance, a little video, maybe 3 frames. And what happens is now we're building out the solution for the doctor-centric app, because in the end, the doctor takes the picture of you and tells you how many freckles you have. It has to be incredibly accurate, right? And it might need more than 1 frame. You might have to take 1, 2, 3, 4 frames, right? And so what we'll do is we'll give that 4-frame problem to the world to try and hack. Right. After they beat that, we'll give them a harder problem. And what happens is each time they hack it and beat it, our solution to skin cancer gets a little bit stronger.
Oh,
what would I'm not quite sure I understand what would drive hackers, which sounds like your system is somewhat dependent on, to want to hack you versus someone else. How do you make that tasty?
I think the confusion here is using the MIT definition of hacking and not the definition that you guys are thinking, I believe, of cracking into systems. So he's just talking about basically computer people in the world that want to solve these problems, not people that are intrusional. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, hacking has to do like rural healthcare hacking. This is people going in and trying to hack away at the problem. They're trying to hack their way into a better situation. They're trying to solve problems, right? Hackers are not these bad guys that they're made out to be who are stealing billions of dollars. Now they do. Now they break into stuff and they'll buy a whole bunch of tickets up for some concert and then scalp them off some other way or something like that. And when that happens, nobody wants to talk about it, is the thing. Like the company that got hacked, they want to keep it secret because they don't want people they don't want to be affected on the stock market. They don't want people to look at their company like they're not trustworthy, like they're hackable, all this type of thing. So what I'm trying to do is get all these people who are into hacking, making solutions better, and I'm not dependent on them. Because if no one ever hacks our system, we can just have a perfect captcha that builds a giant database that solves cancer slowly but surely. If people hack the system, it just kind of turns it into an exponential multiplier.
How are you accessing the CAPTCHA market? Like, how are you becoming the new CAPTCHA?
Great question. Grassroots. The way we're doing it is by reaching out company to company and finding out who has it on their heart to make an impact on skin cancer. And then we're getting them to make this slight shift, which is very little financial shift in their business, from using a CAPTCHA that wastes people's 10 seconds and makes people upset and potentially drives people away after they already spent all this money to get the customer to their website. They've spent all this money to have the right content so the person stays on the website. They've spent all this money to have the right sales tool so they can accept their money and all this stuff. And then they get to the CAPTCHA and they fail it 2 or 3 times and they leave the site. So all we're trying to do is get people to maybe try the CAPTCHA, and you only have to try it once. It's not like a massive failure rate. And then if you like it, if you're like, hey, that was kind of fun and I got to help with, then you click on the link and then you're able to try one after another and really put some major impact on the problem. Some people are going to want to do this all day. It's kind of fun to work through these 6 to 10 second problems to try and beat skin cancer.
So when someone beats the CAPTCHA, they can keep playing like a game?
Yeah. When someone beats the CAPTCHA, they can either go into their website that they just logged into, or they can choose to continue trying to fight cancer.
Cool. So let's loop around and talk about the business model of your business or this app. And how is it going to be funded, or how is it funded? Is it grant driven because you're solving a big problem, it's mission oriented, or you did mention there's a small licensing fee on the back end? Could you explain that to us?
Yeah, monetization is going to come through the licensing fee of the data, so that way everybody has access to the data. But also, we're trying to team up with somebody who really wants to help us give this thing away. And when I say that, I mean maybe a sunscreen company, somebody who really cares about skin or about health and really wants to help the world in some way, will find me and will be maybe the only advertiser. Maybe we just advertise the perfect right sunscreen. We just have one little sunscreen ad on Solar Screen, and people are able to find their sunscreen. Maybe this sunscreen company could help me give away Solar Screen and CAPTCHA to the world. We're hoping through company after company switching over and just feeling a little moral obligation to help the cause, maybe we'll be able to eventually work with major companies that are doing millions of sales per day, and what that would do is speed up the solution process. That's the goal.
So my question goes a little bit back to some of the data related to this phrase "solving skin cancer" that's been said multiple times in the presentation. I understand the value of the freckle counter and the progression of skin markings. I mean, even myself, in the winter, I have less freckles than I do in the summer, or they come out with more UV exposure on my face especially. But explain to me how counting freckles solves the skin, is the solving skin cancer, is the
Right.
solution.
Right. So skin cancer is a massive problem. So we've taken 6 different angles of attack on this. One of them is freckles. And what we found out through PubMed, through researching through PubMed, which is amazing. You guys should all find out about PubMed. It's where all the scientists publish everything they find out about. And we could just go on as regular people and check it out. What we found out is that skin markings are in direct correlation to your chance of having skin cancer. As it increases over time, the correlation is about perfect. So what happens is, if you track how many freckles you have from one time to another, and it's going up at a real steep curve, then you know you need to change your behavior. You need to change whether or not it's sunscreen or going out in the sun. Maybe you need to start tracking that solar, the amount of hours you spend in the sun, which we're developing an app to track how many hours are spent in the sun, which is one of our angles of attack. Also the UV during those hours, and that is in direct correlation to how many skin markings you have. People don't realize right now that the count of freckles they have is super important, and the count of freckles that you have now versus at the end of summer, and somebody in Australia now versus the end of summer, that has implications to the ozone layer above us and how it's changing all the time. So what we're doing is trying to make a huge data set so we can compare all this information over the entire globe. Once all this data is together, there'll be amazingly smart people who are able to put this into reports and are able to show how many freckles somebody has in China and why that matters to skin cancer versus how many freckles somebody has in Utah. But what we know for a fact is that there is a direct correlation, and we need to capitalize on this information. We won't know how to capitalize on this until we find out how many freckles exist.
What data is there already in the marketplace regarding freckles and skin cancer? Like, are there other databases like this that medical professionals can access?
So what medical professionals do right now to solve the problem of how many freckles somebody has on their body is they'll take 1 square inch of the body, like maybe right here or right here, and they would count that, and then by using the height of the person, they use a rough mathematical equation to say you have this many square inches on your body, probably based on your height. In this square inch, you have this many freckles. So mathematically, we say you probably have this many on your whole body. And then that information is not stored anywhere. It's kind of interesting to some dermatologists, and it's on an as-needed basis. What I'm proposing is that we build a new database so that everyone's skin markings, from the time they're born all the way until the time they die, are recorded. This does not exist in the marketplace right now, and it's really, really important that we build it out.
We've got time for one more question. We'll do the standard question. We haven't done it yet. So this is, can you tell us just a little bit about your team? Because this is like, you're looking at a very large level. This is a large scale problem and a large scale solution with a lot of parts to it.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about your team, and then we're going to ask you our last question.
Sure. So my team consists of 9 of us, including myself and my wife, and we have some real big thinkers like Brad Balls and Evan Ozer, who are 2 of our main programmers who are developing the algorithms behind this math. We also have had a chance to work with some really good graphic artists like Dylan Faust, who's built out our iOS app and helped us a lot with the artwork associated. Our team is really in growth mode because we need a lot of people to put their eyes on this problem. We don't need to employ them for a year. We need them for an hour. We need these people to reach out and find me and figure out how to plug into this equation. And the smarter and quicker the person, it doesn't matter, because we broke this thing up really neat so that anybody, no matter what, as long as you can use a computer and fill out a CAPTCHA, you can be part of the solution to skin cancer. And I keep saying the solution to skin cancer because what we're not doing is building an app. What we're not doing is building a CAPTCHA. What we're doing is 6 or 7 or 10 different angles of attack on skin cancer. We have physical angles of attack, and I don't want to go into all of them right now, but if you guys are really interested in the different ways that we're trying to attack this problem, come find me. Come see me. You can find me on LinkedIn, and I would love to talk with you. I'll meet with you anytime, night or day, and no matter how advanced you are in computer technology, or if you're just a gardener and you just fill out a CAPTCHA now and then, and you have a little gardener website and you have a CAPTCHA to make an appointment with you, we'll switch over that CAPTCHA right away and we'll get you on track as soon as possible. And then we'll get all those people who use your gardening service, each one of them will spend their 5 or 10 seconds to skin cancer, and eventually this thing will be wrapped up.
Very cool. So our question for you is, what can 1 million cups as a community do for you? What are some resources that you're looking for? How can we help?
I basically need a springboard to find all these people that are willing to help, that are willing to engage in the problem. So it's going to be kind of like a diving board, where right now I'm spending all my money and time and effort for the last year, and every last red cent, you know, and just like pushing down on this board as hard as I can. And now what I need is for people who are also interested in making this solution come to life to come and push up, you know, like a fountain. And if we all just start pushing up like a fountain on each other, sure enough, we're all just going to go up. And then the end of the problem is going to be the solution to skin cancer.
All right. Very good.